so I thought it would be kind of fun to go through my big long list of indie presses and see what's coming out this fall. I'm gonna have to split this up into a couple of different videos. And we're back for more fall 2022 anticipated releases. Oh God, this is, what are we at? We're at F? Jesus, all right, from Galley Beggar Press, we have Malarkoi by Alex Faby. This is kind of a weird book for me to include here, but it's a second in a series of literary fantasy, and it just sounded so cool. So the trilogy, it's going to be a trilogy. It's called Cities of the Weft, and it's about a boy named Nathan Treves, and in the first book, he's sold to the Master of Mordew, but he has his own secret magical powers. Don't start with the second book, obviously, but the second book is coming out in September from Galley Beggar Press. So then we have Graywolf. In September, Graywolf is publishing a story collection called Sinking Bell by Bojan Lewis. And I love Graywolf's short story collections. I think that short fiction is something they really excel at putting out there into the world. These are stories that are set in and around Flagstaff, Arizona, and they're gritty stories. They draw empathetic portraits that range from day laborers, metalheads, hotel managers, aspiring writers and musicians, construction workers, people passing through with the hope of something better somewhere else. And then in November, Graywolf is publishing Dr. No by Percival Everett, and Graywolf publishes a lot of Everett's novels. So the protagonist of Percival Everett's puckish new novel is a brilliant professor of mathematics who goes by Walla Kitu. Walla, he explained, means nothing in Tagalog, and Kitu is Swahili for nothing. He is an expert on nothing. That is to say, he is an expert, and his area of study is nothing. This makes him the perfect partner for the aspiring villain, John Sill, who wants to break into Fort Knox to steal, well, not gold bars, but a shoebox containing nothing. Once he controls nothing, he'll proceed with a dastardly plan to turn a Massachusetts town into nothing. Or so he thinks. With the help of the brainy and brainwashed astrophysicist turned henchwoman Agan Vector, our professor tries to foil the villain while remaining in his employ. In the process, Walla Kitu learns that Sill's desire to become a literal Bond villain originated in some real all-American villainy related to the murder of Martin Luther King Jr. As Sill says, "Professor, think of it this way. This country has never given anything to us, and it never will. We have given everything to it. I think it's time we gave nothing back." Dr. No is a caper with teeth, a wildly mischievous novel from one of our most inventive, provocative, and productive writers. That it is about nothing isn't to say it's not about anything. In fact, it's about villains, Bond villains, and that's not nothing. Okay, so coming out in October from Graywolf is a collection of poems called We Are Mermaids, and just take a look at this cover, please. It's amazing. From Stephanie Burt, and with humor and insight, Burt's poems have always cherished and examined things of this world, both real and imagined. We Are Mermaids is a trans book, a fangirl book, a book about coming together. In this collection, Frozen isn't simply another Disney animated musical, but the most trans movie ever. Mermaids, werewolves, and superheroes don't just fret over divided natures and secret identities, but celebrate their wholeness, their unique abilities, and their erotic potential. And in October, also from Graywolf, is The Consequences by Manuel Munoz. And these are exquisite stories that are mostly set in the 1980s in the small towns that surround Fresno. With an unflinching hand, Munoz depicts the Mexican and Mexican-American farm workers who put food on our tables, but are regularly and ruthlessly rounded up, as well as the quotidian struggles and immense challenges faced by their families. And it's blurred by Sandra Cisneros, who says she wished that she had written them. Then in September, from Grove Press, we have The Search for the Genuine, which is a collection of nonfiction essays from Jim Harrison, the amazing novelist and writer and poet. In this collection, I don't know too much about it other than it's full of humor, compassion, and zest for life. It includes essays from the open ocean to Yellowstone, comments on the work of other writers, as well as matters of the spirit. And then in November from Grove Press, we have Foster by Claire Keegan. This is a novella. It's about a small girl who's sent to live with foster parents in rural Ireland. Some sort of secret is revealed. And finally, from Grove Press in November is a collection called Pathetic Literature. and it's edited by Eileen Miles. It includes fiction, I believe, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and plays, 688 pages. And it explores this idea of the pathetic and kind of reclaims the word pathetic and reattaching it to its original meaning from the Greek, like an inspiring emotion or feeling. So that just sounded so intriguing. So then from Handheld Press, I have a bunch of books from Handheld Press actually, but in September, they're publishing a book called Strange Relics, Stories of Archaeology and the Supernatural from 1895 to 1954. And Handheld has several of these collections where they're kind of republishing these stories, older stories. They have one called Weird Women, I think. Actually, I think they have two, Weird Women and Weird Women 2. So this is Strange Relics, and it's edited by Amara Thornton and Katie Soar. And it is a collection of haunting supernatural short stories that are inspired by or somehow incorporate archaeological discoveries or archaeological sites, and it ranges from ancient Egyptian and Roman remains to medieval ceramic tiles and Neolithic rites. From Homebound Publications, there's a nonfiction book called Refraction by Bruce Rettig, and it recounts the author's experience of working in a remote Arctic outpost in Alaska. It's the home of the largest oil field in North America. Kind of provides an intimate exploration or account of the big oil industry and all of the various people that the author got to know while he was working there, all of the fellow laborers in this isolated camp, as well as the stark landscape and wildlife that he encountered. And then from Interlink, I have several cookbooks because I am a big collector of cookbooks. I love cookbooks. So in September, they are publishing a book called Salamati, Hamed's Persian Kitchen. And Salamati is Farsi for health and cheers. And these are recipes and stories from Iran, and it looks really beautiful. In October, Interlink is publishing a book called Home Food by Olia Hercules. She's actually one of my favorite cookbook writers, one in particular called Mamushka. And if you're a fan of the Addams Family, yes, she named her cookbook after the Mamushka in the Addams Family. But these home food are 100 recipes to comfort and connect. She writes mostly Eastern European recipes from her family heritage. They're always really beautiful pictures, and she's got a great voice as well. And then in December from Interlink, they have a cookbook called Motherland, a Jamaican cookbook. And these are 80 recipes, really well researched, exploring the evolution of Jamaican cuisine over hundreds and hundreds of years and hundreds of years of influences. So that also looked very beautiful. All right, from Milkweed, we have Bluest Nude. I love the cover of this one, if I'm remembering it correctly. Bluest Nude from Ama Kojo. These are poems that explore how the archetype of the artist complicates the typical expectations placed on women to be gazed upon, be silent, be selfless, to reproduce. And that comes out in September. And then also in September, really intense sounding memoir that also simultaneously sounds absolutely fascinating, called Sinkhole, A Legacy of Suicide by Juliet Patterson. And this is a memoir. Patterson explores her family's history with suicide. She has quite a number of family members who committed suicide, and it's her exploration into her family's history, kind of figuring out what is causing this pattern within her family. And so it sounds just fascinating. Also from Milkweed in November, there is a nonfiction book collection of essays called Conversations with Birds from Priyanka Kumar, where the author is kind of just sharing stories about encounters she has with the avian world. And it just sounds really charming. Okay, let's just stop there for a second because I need a break from that list of amazing books. I am still in the middle of my small beer end of summer, reading through my Small Beer Press books. Here we go. Yeah, so you might notice something funny at the top there. You know, there's multiple copies. When I got the boxes from Powell's, I ordered these from Powell's, and I got them in like 2 different shipments. I didn't order all of these. I ordered some of these from Powell's. And I opened the first box and had 2 copies of The Winged Histories. and was, confounded and flabbergasted and realized I must have made a mistake with the cart when I was ordering these. And then the second box came, and I don't know how I did that. I'm not really sure what to do. I ordered 3 of the same book. So welcome to my life. I think I had because I have an online account with Powell's, and had filled my cart, and they save your cart. And I had added these books to my cart multiple times as I was figuring out when I could afford to buy them all. Then went back and forgotten I had added them to my cart, and I went and didn't log in, added books to my cart, went to check out, logged in so that I could check out, and I guess the books were in my cart still, and I didn't notice that it had said 2 or 3 next to the books, which was really dumb. Guess I didn't notice that the total was way more than it should be, which again was really dumb. But you know what? Things happen. Mistakes were made. I have multiple copies of these books, and I think I'm going to be giving them away as gifts or something. I know I'm loving this, so I can probably give this away as a gift. So hopefully the same is true for Fire Logic. But yeah, it's just a little preview of kind of what my world is like. But reading The Winged Histories by Sofia Samatar, which is the follow-up, not a sequel, but a follow-up novel to A Stranger in Alondria, and it takes place also in Alondria, but with really none of the same characters. And I like this one even more than I liked A Stranger in Alondria. And you'll see that my son has made me an awesome bookmark to go with it. It's a sword. But this is told from the perspective of 4 different women who have different roles within this war that's going on among the different lands of Alondria. So it's really good. I'm enjoying it greatly. So back to the book list. What letter are we on? Oh my God, we're on N. Okay. In September, from New Directions, we have Tonio the Infallible by Evelio Rosero, translated from the Spanish by Victor Meadowcroft and Anne McLean. So this is a Colombian writer. This novel is about a writer and the writer's relationship with a sociopath named Tonio, who in the blurb and the description on the website is compared both to Patrick Bateman and Rasputin. That just sold itself. And then October, from New Directions, we have Weasels in the Attic by Hiroko Oyamada, translated from Japanese by David Boyd. This author recently had another book you may have seen around called The Factory. So this is a similar surreal approach to looking at kind of the everyday aspects of Japanese life and society. But this one is 3 interconnected scenes that visit the same set of characters, interconnected characters, I think, at different points in their lives. And that's really all I know about it, other than the cover is beautiful. And then also in October, from New Directions, is Hermione by Hilda Doolittle, otherwise known as HD. And this is a reissued classic with a new introduction that's an autobiographical novel by the Imagist poet HD. And you'll find New Directions reissues lots of classics. And then in November, from New Directions, is The Life Before Us by Romain Gary, translated from the French by Ralph Manheim. This is again a reissued, back in print book about Momo, a child who grows up in a brothel in Paris, and it features this really wide range of interesting characters, and it was the winner of the Prix Goncourt, which is the very, very famous French literary prize. And then in October, from New York Review of Books, we have Seasons of Splendor by Madhur Jaffrey, illustrated by Michael Foreman. And Jaffrey is one of my very favorite cookbook authors. But this is actually an illustrated treasury of stories about Indian gods and goddesses, kings and queens, princes and demons, and it sounds really beautiful. And it's a children's book. Also from New York Review of Books is a new translation of Bambi by Felix Salten. It's translated from the German by Damien Searles. And this is a 100-year-old book, and I learned that this wasn't necessarily written as a children's book. It's only because of the Disney movie that we necessarily think of it as a children's story. It says it's a moving and lasting contribution to the literature of the natural world and can be easily enjoyed by adults as well as children. That comes out on September 20th. And then from Nightboat in October, we have My Manservant and Me, which is by Hervé Guibert, translated by Jeffrey Zuckerman. And this is a republished classic. It was published in 1991, which was the year that the author had passed away from AIDS. And the story is about the trials and tribulations of having a live-in valet. It's written from the uneasy perspective of an aging, incontinent author of extremely successful middle-brow plays. In My Manservant and Me, we learn about the author's live-in manservant, a young film actor who is easily moved to both delicate gestures and terrible tantrums, and who's been authorized to handle his employer's finances and wardrobe, and he sleeps in the guy's bed, and he won't let him watch the TV that his employer wants to watch. It says that the novel reveals the rude specificities of this relationship with provocative humor and stylistic abjection. This manservant won't be going anywhere. And then in September from Other Press, we have The Color Line. This is by Ijaba Sego, and it's translated from the Italian by John Cullen and Gregory Conti. And this was actually published in Italy 10 years ago, but it was inspired by true events. It's a novel, but inspired by true events. The novel's about a black painter named Lefanu Brown, who moved to Italy in the wake of the Civil War. And in 1887 in Rome, she's telling her life story to her fiance. And then the novel, it sounds like it shifts to 2019 to an Italian art curator who is of Somali origin, who becomes obsessed with this painter, Lefanu Brown's art and her life, and I think starts to dig up secrets from the painter's life in the 2019 time period. And it's described as a polyphonic novel of the Afro-Italian experience. And then also from Other Press is The Last Gift of the Master Artists by Ben Okri. And this is actually a rewritten novel that was originally published as Starbook. The title was Starbook in 2007. And it's about a young boy who's the son of a king and a girl who's the daughter of a craftsman, and they meet on a riverbank. They arrange to meet again the next day, and the girl doesn't show up. And so the boy begins this search for her, and it becomes not a love story, but a story about the Atlantic slave trade and the Middle Passage. And again, this was, I guess, recently rewritten by the author, which is super intriguing. And that comes out in November from Other Press. In November from Red Hen Press, we have this beautiful poetry collection called Flutter Kick from Anne V.Q. Ross. I'm just obsessed with both the cover and the title. It plumbs the topic of motherhood, migration, childhood, and the cycles of violence and renewal that recur in each. And it says these are poems of math homework and police sirens, where a fox pops out of a fairy tale to dig up the backyard. City gas leak conjures xenophobic backlash against refugees. And then from Restless Books in September is a novel called Concerning My Daughter, and it's by Kim Hae-jin, and it's translated from the Korean by Jamie Chang. This takes place in Korea, and it's about a woman who has a daughter who's in her 30s, and this woman has kind of envisioned a certain life for her daughter that involves getting married and having children, and her daughter moves back home with this woman and brings with her her long-term girlfriend. I think it's about the woman's, the character's struggles to welcome their relationship into her home. So that sounded really great. All right, home stretch, home stretch, home stretch, home stretch. Okay, this is not coming out in the fall. It's coming out like probably by the time I actually post this, but it sounds so cool. It has a skull on it, so that just means fall. So it's The Silverberg Business by Robert Freeman Wexler from Small Beer Press. It comes out August 23rd in 1888, Victoria, Texas. For a simple job, a Chicago private eye gets caught up in much darker affairs and ends up in a poker game to end all poker games. He returns home to Galveston, Texas for a wedding. Galveston's new rabbi asks Shannon, the police detective, to find Nathan Silverberg, gone missing along with a group of swindlers who claim to be soliciting money for a future colony of Romanian Jewish refugees. What seems to be a simple job soon pushes Shannon into stranger territory. His investigations lead him to a malevolent white-haired gambler, monstrous sand dune totems, and a group of skull-headed poker players trapped in an endless loop of cards and alcohol, who may be his only means to survive the business. Gloriously strange, hard-boiled tale that crosses genres and defies expectations. Soft Skull Press, we have coming out on September 13th. We have Normal Distance from the poet Eliza Gabbert, poet and essayist Eliza Gabbert. This is a collection of funny and thought-provoking poems inspired by surprising facts that will appeal to poetry lovers and poetry haters alike. These poems collect strange facts, interrogate language, and ask unanswerable questions. How does one suffer gladly, exactly? How bored are dogs? Which is more frightening, nothing or empty space? From the great publisher Tilted Axis Press, coming out October 27th, we have Ravathi, A Life in Trans Activism. So this is from a path-breaking and respected contemporary Indian activist. It says it's about how the personal intersects with the communal and institutional for trans Indians. Relevant for an international audience, but explores the specificity of the Indian context in terms of caste and marginalization of trans men, and how this intersects with a more Western-centric discourse on trans people and trans rights. From Tin House, coming out in September 6th, is What We Fed to the Manticore, stories by Talia Lakshmi Kalluri. These are 9 stories that are all narrated from animal perspectives. It explores themes of environmentalism, conservation, identity, belonging, loss, and family. An endangered rhino. A faithful hound mourns the loss of the endangered rhino he swore to protect. Vultures seek meaning as they attend to the antelope that perished in Central Asia. A beloved donkey's loyalty to a zookeeper in Gaza is put to the ultimate test. And a wounded pigeon in Delhi finds an unlikely friend. Oh, okay. I have to get that one. Also from Tin House, coming out on October 18th, is Singer Distance by Ethan Chadinier. By Ethan Chadinier for fans of Station 11 and Light from Other Stars. It takes place in December 1960, and we have some grad students from MIT who are on a cross-country road trip from Boston to Arizona, and they're gonna paint a message in the desert. Mars has been silent for years, so I was like with it up until now. So okay, they're going to the desert to paint a message. And then the next sentence is, Mars has been silent for years, since the last time Earth solved one of the mathematical proofs the Martian civilization carved onto its surface. So it's about Mars and Earth, and the cover's cool. Then also from Tin House, with a gorgeous cover, is So Tall It Ends in Heaven, poems by Jamie Ringleb. These are lush, deeply intimate poems that explore sexuality, estrangement, and distances we travel for love. It's about a queer Southern speaker's attempts to restore a relationship. His father lives across an ocean, but more keeps them apart than just that. His father rejected his son long ago after learning his son is gay. And the poems search for answers across the US and Europe. Speaker struggles to separate his understanding of devotion and belonging from the constant losses in his life. Home stretch here, folks. All right, from Unnamed Press, we have Cairo Circles from Doma Mahmood. This is an epic multi-perspective page turner. Shiro is the main character, an NYU student reveling in independence is free from the judgmental gaze of his conservative family back in Egypt. And one day the FBI comes knocking on his door, and he's convinced it's a case of mistaken identity until they show him a picture of his cousin Amir. And Amir has perpetrated a horrific attack, and Shiro is suddenly forced to return to Cairo and confront the events that led to their wildly different circumstances. Then coming out from Unnamed Press in October 4th, is Edie Richter is Not Alone. And this is a novel, and it says, in Perth, Edie finds herself in a remarkably isolated but verdant corner of the world. But Edie has a secret. She committed an unthinkable act that she can barely admit to herself. In some ways, the landscape mirrors her own complicated inner life, and rather than escaping her past, she has to confront what she's done. And then also from Unnamed Press, on November 1st, is a nonfiction book called Cyclettes by Tree Abraham. It began as a list of every bicycle the author has ever owned, and it's filled with like vignettes that are about cycling and bicycles. So for the bicycle lovers in your life, of which I have a few. From Wave Books, we have Sandra Simon's poetry collection called Triptychs. I include this here because the form looks so interesting. It's a poetry collection that was initially crafted on receipt paper that was obtained at a dollar store. And then these poems or words were assembled into 3 columns. It says each pillar is in conversation with another, sequentially and simultaneously. Just formally looks very cool. Triptychs comes out November 2022. Then finally, from World Editions, we have a novel called We Are Light by Gerda Blees, and it's translated from the Dutch by Michelle Hutchinson. And it's about a commune called the Sound and Love Commune. And in the middle of one summer night, Elizabeth, the oldest resident, dies. Several other members of the commune are arrested. Sounds like there is an investigation into the group's attempts to stop eating and survive on light and love alone. It seems that effort has been fatal to dear Elizabeth. So it looks like we kind of get different perspectives through the eyes of the night, the neighbors, the scent of an orange, and many other characters and entities. We see how each of those involved in Elizabeth's death gives a different answer to the question of how Elizabeth came to die. Who is to blame? And can the commune still have a future? We Are Light is a highly original and entertaining novel about manipulation, vulnerability, and trying to be better. That's We Are Light, and it comes out, oh darn it, it comes out in 2023.